Every election cycle, the divisions grow deeper. Red versus blue, rural versus urban, coast versus heartland. And now, a dangerous question is bubbling beneath the surface. If enough states are unhappy with Washington, could they just break away? Today, we dive deep into whether individual US states can actually secede, how it would happen, and what the global fallout would look like if America began to unravel from within. The first question, is secession even legal? First, the blunt answer, no, secession is illegal. In 1869, after the devastation of the Civil War, the Supreme Court ruled in Texas versus White that the United States is a perpetual, indestructible union. No state can unilaterally leave, even if its people are furious with the federal government. In theory, the only legal way out would require 1. A constitutional amendment, 2. Approved by 2/3 of Congress, 3. Ratified by 3/4 of the states. In other words, almost impossible. But legality isn't the only factor. History shows that when enough people want something badly enough, they might just try it anyway. Next, why would states even consider secession? The frustrations are growing. Economic frustration. States feeling overtaxed, believing they subsidize federal programs they don't support. Cultural frustration. States feeling their values on guns, religion, education, and immigration are ignored or undermined by federal law. Political frustration. When elections swing in directions half the country feels are illegitimate or corrupt. In today's America, it's not hard to imagine a scenario where states like Texas, Florida, or even groups of Midwest states start asking whether Washington, D.C. still represents them at all. So how could it happen? If a state were determined to break away, 3 scenarios could unfold. Path 1. Negotiated divorce. Highly unlikely, but possible. The state lobbies Congress and the rest of the Union for an orderly separation. Massive political, military, and financial negotiations would follow. Think Brexit, but much messier. Path 2. Mass nullification. The state refuses to enforce federal laws, stops sending federal tax revenue, and acts like an independent nation, daring Washington to respond. Path 3. Unilateral secession and standoff. The state declares independence outright. Federal troops are deployed, markets panic, and once again, the United States stares down the barrel of a possible civil conflict. None of these paths are clean. All of them are dangerous. Some of you may have then wondered why Brexit worked, but secession in America doesn't. Brexit is often cited by frustrated Americans as proof that exit is possible. The United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union, and despite political chaos, economic fear, and intense negotiations, Britain eventually managed to walk away. But here's the crucial difference. The European Union was a voluntary economic and political union of sovereign nations. Britain never gave up its core national identity, military independence, or ultimate sovereignty when it joined. By contrast, US states are not sovereign nations. When states joined the United States, they agreed, both legally and constitutionally, to form a single, indivisible country. The EU was a partnership, the United States is a marriage. Leaving the EU was messy, leaving the US would be violent. That's why, unlike Brexit, there's no legal exit door for American states, only walls and consequences. What would be the immediate impact if something like that actually happened? The chaos would be instant. Federal response. Washington would almost certainly view any unilateral secession as illegal rebellion. Expect blockades, frozen bank accounts, military standoffs, fast. Economic collapse. Global investors depend on the idea of American unity and stability. If that unity shatters, the US dollar would crash, markets would spiral, supply chains would freeze, global shockwaves, allies would panic, enemies would celebrate. The world's largest economy would be in free fall, dragging the entire planet into recession or worse. The geopolitical vacuum would be filled quickly by China, Russia, and others who have long dreamed of a weaker America. Could secession actually work long term? Let's say somehow a state like Texas or California succeeded. Would it really be better off? Maybe, for a while. Texas has oil, agriculture, ports, and tech hubs. California has Silicon Valley, Hollywood, and massive GDP. But they would lose immediate access to US defense, intelligence, federal funding, and economic safety nets. New countries would face new borders, tariffs, sanctions, and hostile neighbours. And internal divisions, rural versus city, conservative versus progressive, could tear these new nations apart from within. In other words, breaking away doesn't solve problems. It often creates even bigger ones. So why is a secession almost impossible, but still dangerous? In reality, actual secession remains highly unlikely. States are too economically tied together. The US military would never allow key territories to just walk away, and the global stakes are simply too high. But the growing talk of secession, the fantasies about Texit, Calexit, or new American republics, reveals something deeper: a loss of trust, a belief that the system is broken beyond repair, and that belief, if it continues to grow, could destabilize America more than any secession attempt ever could. In the end, America's greatest threat may not come from foreign enemies, but from the fractures inside its own walls. Because no empire falls from the outside first. It collapses from within. If you like more of such thought-provoking topics, share and subscribe for more deep dives into